All right, cool. Okay, we're going to read this really quick. And then we're going to go back into some solos, you guys. This is shout out to Kaizen. This is the post on subreddit that got the whole conversation started, and we're going to read it right quick. I always thought the idea of a PVE game mode in Spellbreak as odd because it's projectile based. You can only find so much enjoyment from throwing a fireball or a DF cloud on a predictable AI monster over and over and over again. Yes, I know that's basically BR right now, which is why our numbers are down bad. I can see it getting boring fast. Unless they add other types of weapon choices similar to Genshin, then I could see a Spellbreak PvE game mode working, but at that point it would be an entirely different game if you add melee weapons. Also, the character animations would need to have some more to it than just a punch that unleashes a fireball over and over again. Just curious how the people would have been begging for a PvE game mode would envision one. Try to sell me on it. What would you have in it? How would the combat change to fit a more PvE experience, or would you just keep the combat exactly the same? And that's basically what we're talking about, you guys. So I want to hear y'all's answers. You can go and get involved with the subreddit post and see exactly what everybody has to say. But I'm getting my idea out there. We're going to put it out in video form, and I would love to get your all's input and kind of put it out there too. But for me, when I think about Spellbreak PvE, my mind instantly goes to how epically awesome it would be to have the elemental interaction we have now applied to boss fights and to worlds and to areas. They could have different biomes themed after every element, which I've talked about for a long time. They could have more environmental effects so that you can imagine a boss fight where you are fighting a boss, a giant toad in a swamp, in a marshland. In the marshland, there are bubbling swamp pits that I've talked about before. Those bubbling swamp pits can be ignited with a fireball or frozen with a frost lance to give you cover to heal. Or you could bait the frog near those swamp lands or that swamp area. Explode the DF, get extra damage by trying to use the area to your advantage. Not only that, imagine that the frog itself had like warts or boils with toxic stuff on them. Imagine that you needed to try to ignite those with your fire gauntlet and it tried to guard those weak points. Like all of these things, it just like, I feel like the PvE mode starts to write itself when you look at what Spellbreak already has to offer, especially with their elemental interaction system. And I think also with the movement that they've allowed, and I'm hoping if Chapter 4 comes back, we'll get more. I think the movement, hopefully the verticality will come back a little bit from what we used to have, because the verticality is not here nearly as much. But I feel like with a game like this, it would also for them to allow them to just build really epically beautiful like areas and landscapes that other games might not normally be able to do. Like imagine fighting a giant poisonous moth while you are traversing a giant enchanted tree, you know, and you have to jump from like mushroom to mushroom and like use your Spellbreak movement to climb the tree until maybe you get to the top where the boss fight finally starts. Or, you know, like there is so many great opportunities here with what they've already built that could really shine in a PvE mode, and adding a PvE mode like that could really help with the appeal of, you know, giving players a chance to learn at their own pace, getting them to learn the interactions and the physics of the game without being thrown into an arena full of gods or even one or two good skilled players, you know. Story mode should be like a Ratchet and Clank style gameplay, meaning mission wise. That could be cool. I really like the idea of you wanting to like get down to what's happening with the Vow Breakers and the Vow Keepers. So if you guys don't know, the basic story is that magic is not, you're not supposed to be using magic, and that's why we are called breakers, because we are breaking our vow to use magic because we don't believe that magic should be kept from everybody. And like the government people don't really want that to happen, so we're kind of like the rebels against that, right? If you look at the outfits and stuff that's come out in the past chapter or so, they have really started to define different tribes, like Lady Shadowgrace and some other ones. There's Whitgrave Shaman. There's a lot of outfits that are themed, named after certain areas of the map and themed after certain elements. And so I think it would really be awesome in a PVE mode if you were to have to go and visit each tribe and like battle their champions, and like even potentially learn a different augmentation for your gauntlet. Make your gauntlet do a different kind of spell or any kind of cosmetics, or maybe even get access to a new kind of rune, something like that. But also from our past knowledge of the community and what's been going on, it's very likely that PVE Spellbreak would look like Dauntless because of Monster Hunter stuff might be on their mind. And we also need to keep in mind that they are big fans of Destiny. So what does Monster Hunter and Destiny fuse together but with a coat of paint that looks like Spellbreak on it? What does that look like? Is that like the idea of different weapon classes within each element? So like each class has a projectile, a melee, and AoE, maybe even a form of defense like a shield. Yeah, but that, I mean, again, I see where you're coming from, but I think that gets just way too far away from what Spellbreak is now. I think that it really takes away from the identities of what the gauntlets do, and I think that's kind of important. I think you need to, like, maybe the talents in PvE will help you turn a class that's normally like DPS into more of a defense class, or maybe even like a life stealing class in PvE. But I don't know, like I said, I think that the gauntlets and the classes, you know, their identity is in like one's a sniper, one's of a more of a tanky, and I think that's important for Spellbreak to keep. I always imagined a huge Titan boss that you could climb using Firefly and win like a really big Titan. Yes, Dioniso, you're coming through with some beautiful ideas. Imagine the mages. Imagine there's some Spellbreak, like there's some breakers that are breaking the oath of spells. Like, we're not the only people breaking the oath, right? There are probably tons of people out there trying to rebel and use magic. What if some irresponsible mages try a spell that summons like an ancient elemental golem? What if it has multiple parts of it that is different elements that you have to use different gauntlets to be able to do more damage against? That would be amazing. What if this thing gets summoned and starts making its way toward the hometown, toward the hub base, and you're like, you know, you're desperately trying to stop it, man. I love that idea. Nice. Gauntlets. I think that would be a great way to keep people playing and interested and invested and get them excited about learning the combat. To be honest, if we had a version of Spellbreak was basically a story-heavy MMORG with all the same core gameplay elements, it could be the best game ever. If they keep the PvP in, they need to have better modes. They need to take a big note from Lost Ark's PvP game modes. Lost Ark has some of the best PvP game modes I've seen in almost any game. And honestly, I think they could copy and paste those modes, put it into an MMORPG of Spellbreak. When I say MMORPG, I mean like Dauntless, if you consider that an MMORPG, like instanced, hub-based type gameplay, you know? Yep. You need to send these ideas to Proletariat. Listen, we're going to make this is going to go into a video, and we're going to post it on Reddit, so Proletariat will see it. So if you have information, if you have input, I want to hear it from you. These conversations are going to be our main YouTube content from now on, and you guys are helping us input and get it out there. On that specific comment, I'm going to read it again because I do want to make it clear to everybody that is newer to the community. Melee weapon isn't out of the realm of possibilities, it just seems like it would be clunky. There are 4 or 5 podcast videos from the founding developers of Spellbreak talking about everything about Spellbreak. One of the videos talks about the origin and inception of the game and the company Proletariat. In that video, they are asked multiple times about melee weapons, and their response is, we have tried melee weapons over and over and over again, and melee weapons do not work in Spellbreak. Melee weapons will not come to Spellbreak. So, does that mean they won't come to Spellbreak? No. That means it's very, very, very unlikely. It could happen, especially if a PVE mode comes out. It could happen. But given what they said and why they said it, which I think is mostly because of the movement of Spellbreak and because of the other weapons in the game, a melee weapon would be very difficult to balance and make it even like usable, in my opinion. So I think the closest thing we've got, and is what they said, is the Toxic Gauntlet with this kind of shotgun type projectile stuff. But yeah, you can get, like I said, if you're going off of what they've said, going off the experience of people that's been watching for a while, I wouldn't get my hopes up, but it's possible. Now I remember when they were talking about the sword and they were talking about the melee things, they were like, we had to make it to where you could throw the melee thing at somebody. And then we figured out, once you throw the melee thing at somebody, you have to go back and pick it up. So it didn't work very well. I'm pretty sure that's what they said. They're like, yeah, we made it. Yeah, we gave them swords, and then we're like, we got to make it to where you can throw it at people. And then we realized you throw it and you don't have it anymore. Love the simplicity of Spellbreak, which is why I hesitate to get too far into ideas. Like, the game feels near perfect to me in basic formula. I want to expand it and balanced. Yeah, and that's why I think that the suggestion of using a PVE mode is so smart, because it allows you to keep the core of what we have. And the PVE mode can literally be like the cushion into the more hardcore combat. Like, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but you still have things you can do that's fun and enjoyable and engaging. And like, you kind of consider the PVE as like the welcome lobby, right? And then like the PvP is like the back room where everybody's like getting down to business, playing some cards, you know. It just needs to feel more tied together. It sounds like the hypothetical PvE would be where most of the lore and world building takes place, but I want that stuff to blend in with the PvP modes. I think they would do that as well. I think that from the previous patches and the way that they were willing to implement AI and like have fetch quests and stuff like that, things that you need to activate, things that you need to collect, that kind of stuff shows me that they're willing to bring more of the storytelling into PvP, and I think that's beautiful. I think that's genius. One thing I've always said, that Fortnite revolutionized the community experience and the storytelling experience by having these live events. And for me, I feel like that's what it should be. It should be exactly what Fortnite does. It should be a subtle mixture of quests in your chapter pass that you do just while you're playing PvP, that will like map changes and subtle quests that will kind of be like, oh, there's something going on here. And then there should be a live event where everybody experiences something all together, or, you know, that could even change the map. I think that is so engaging, not for just the community of the game, but it's so engaging for people that just want to watch it if they do it on the right level. And if you guys did Chapter 2's Chapter Pass, at the end of that Chapter Pass, does anybody know what the last quest was in that Chapter Pass? You basically activated this gigantic hologram, and you got to see like this little vision of this mystery. And we still don't know exactly what it was, but it was a vision of who started the fracture. If you guys play Spellbreak, you know that the fracture is tearing the HoloLands apart. So if you keep that in mind, right now we're fighting in a very unstable place. And that's why the Spellstorm happens, is because the HoloLands is reacting to us breakers casting spells and fighting on it all the time, and to what this person did to start the fracture. So there's already this huge story going on. They're already willing to tell it through cool in-game events. They just need to do it on a larger scale. And when Chapter 4 comes back, if it comes back, I think they're willing to do that. I think they probably will have will have had the time have the team, has the money, and I think we could potentially get something like that. But that's what it needs to be. That's what it needs to be. Oh yeah, they could do a PVE with how the fracture happened, and fractures would be in the BR. Exactly. Tron. Yes. Oh my gosh. Wait a second. What if we get a PVE monster hunting game where we have to defeat creatures that are coming from the fracture? Yeah, everything's happened because of this person that started it all. Imagine PVE is like a flashback where you are in ancient Spellbreak world before the fracture. Yo, listen, Bongo, you're on the right track because the last chapter pass, and maybe this one. No, I think it was the last one. The culmination of that chapter pass, the way that we were able to see that vision is we created this chrono machine that was able to see things from the past. So, I mean, that being part of the quest, plus the fact that Chronomancer is a rune in the game, it means that time magic exists in this world. Time magic already exists in this world. So going back to the origin of the fracture and seeing, you know, how the vow was made for magic to not be used, all of that stuff is totally in the realm of possibility. And I would lose my mind, man. I would lose my mind. I love origin stories. I would love origin stories. And I didn't even know that I wanted an origin story for Spellbreak, but I want it, man. Oh, and imagine your quest in PvE gradually reveals the story pre-fracture while your quest in PvP reveal a post-fracture story. Oh, gosh. Yes. I love that. I love that. That would bring players into both modes. It would incentivize both modes. Well, it would for anybody that wants to learn more about the lore, and they could obviously incentivize it with rewards as well. That'd be cool, man. Getting people more immersed and invested and engaged with the story is, in my opinion, what builds a much more solid foundation. Yeah, so you basically just ramp up the difficulty of the creatures. I think like a creature that requires like a 4-person versus a boss can push a person. I think they can program AI for something like that to challenge players with this kind of movement more than they could with just an individual like mage. Like the AI that we have in the game right now is not the kind of AI that you should imagine in a PvE mode. I mean, obviously they could be used as like ads or like mobs if you played any other MMORPGs, but like I would not consider them as the main challenge. It would definitely, I feel like if you really want to challenge players and really get them to like get to use the movement, you create a boss with like dynamic mechanics and force them to come up with like strategies, create like giant areas of effect that players have to like dodge or they die, stuff like that. That you see in World of Warcraft or Lost Ark or any other MMORPG that has any kind of decent movement is like, it's already something that a lot of players that are in those type of games already understand. Like you have to be responsible for your own positioning and not getting hit by stuff that you shouldn't be out of. And they could really lean into that idea with how they make the bosses difficult. You know, make them to where if you're not on your A game with your movement, you're not going to be able to dodge their mechanics, and they're going to one-shot you. And I think that's how you really use the PvE to push the players to learn more of the movement, and then they can take it over to PvP and apply that, you know? Better tutorial. Oh, yes. The tutorial could use some work. I mean, I think it does a good job of breaking down the basics, but I don't think it sets you up for what you're going to get in PvP. It does not really showcase the movement. I think that it should have like a section in the tutorial that says, all right, breakers, in this game, it's all about movement. And if you can't keep yourself moving to stay alive, then you'll be in the next queue before you know it. So make sure you familiarize yourself with each class's movement ability. In Frostborn, you can skate your way into victory by early circle entry with alacrity. You can also use it for quick quick speed boosts in the middle of combat. Like, just show what each class's movement tech is, show how it can be used in a couple of different situations, and emphasize that movement is important. You know, like, I think that right there alone would drastically improve the expectations of new players. Customizable skins would be cool. Yeah, that's what I wonder. I guess they could use like the really basic outfits that they have now as like style choices. I would like, they don't necessarily have to do this, but I think they probably would. I'm a really big fan of getting gear that not only improves my stats but also changes my look. And I think with the art team that Spellbreak has, they would be foolish not to lean into that idea. However, they do have tons and tons of outfits already created, which doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't go with, you know, different clothing and different gear that you could change your look with. They could actually use those outfits and just like yoink the clothes off of those outfits and make them available for us in PVE. So you could do something like the Hollow's hood, right? And you can get the Hollow's hood, and you get this hood, you put it on your character, it makes your face dark. You might not necessarily look just like the Hollow, but it might, you know, it would be really cool to have them just referencing these characters and these outfits they've already created, and just turning it into cosmetic gear that you could, or it doesn't even have to be necessarily cosmetic. It could be real loot, and just let it change your appearance. That'd be really cool to mix and match. Like the Blade Kith glasses, or the Blightbringer's mask. Like, they could easily take some of these things and put it into the PVE mode for you to collect, and it would be so, like, it's already made, it's already there, and it would tie into the lore. You know, the crown of Shadow Grace. A lot of this stuff looks like it would look sick to put on another, like a base outfit, and kind of mix and match. We're going to take a look at Spellbreak's roadmap and talk about what that roadmap means for a PVE mode. We want to tell you a story in Spellbreak, and we want to do it over the course of weeks, months, and years. It's not just about adding a new gameplay mechanic every other week, but about exploring why that gameplay exists in the world. We want you to explore new content and expanding worlds with us and your fellow players. At the most basic level, the chapter system provides you with weekly quest-based story content and rewards. On top of that, as you make your way through the chapter as a whole, you'll unlock new gameplay and cosmetic rewards. In the coming weeks, we'll have a much more in-depth look at the chapter system, but I wanted to provide some basic context for the first parts of it described below. This tells us that they really want to tell a story. They want to focus on building a lore, building a world, and they want us all to experience it together. A lot of times, together can be PvP, but I feel like it might be even better as a team in PvE. So yeah, I think that might even lean toward the idea, because it's a much easier task to tell tell a story in PvE. That doesn't necessarily, they can't do it in PvP. But yeah, I think that does lean toward more of a potential PvE mode. That over. All right, we'll open that up too. For you guys that do not know, shout out to Spanky Esports for bringing this up. It's been around in the community for a long time. So you guys that don't know about it, and you're just not finding out about it, you might be kind of excited. This is the screenshot, or this is the image that was posted on Facebook months and months and months ago. It was removed in less than like 12 hours, and it was for Proletariat looking for testers to try out a new monster hunting game. All right, it's been known around in this community for a long time. It's nothing new, so I'm not breaking anything wide open. This has been known for a while, but if it's new to you guys, you might be excited. This is yeah, this was the image that was up for a very short period of time. A lot of people did not get to see it, but as you can see, it's very PVE. There's a group of breakers. We see 3 breakers here, but we do see other weapon types. They're not necessarily wearing gauntlets. There's a toxic spear of some sorts, or maybe even a claymore. We've got a fire bow, and we've got a hammer and shield of lightning. So we've got 2 bosses, we've got some mobs here, and these definitely look like fracture creatures. These creatures look like fractures that have crawled out from the cracks in the Hollowlands. And if this was continued on, if this idea was continued on, that could be exactly what we should be expecting to see from a Spellbreak PvE mode. Our match just popped, so we're going to get into this and play this game. But we are going to look at the long-term roadmap in just a second and talk about that a little bit more as well. So I think it is early concept art, but it's for a newer game or for a new mode that they're bringing Spellbreak into. They may have wanted to make a whole entirely new game, but they may have eventually merged it into what we're talking about, what we may get. They're working on a mobile game. What if the crossplays was SB somehow like a way to rack up gold to gear through the mobile game? I don't know if that's a mobile game. If it is, I would be a little bit bummed out. I would be probably pretty bummed out about it, to be honest with you. I would love for it to be a full-fledged PvE mode on PC that you could really sink your teeth into, and not just some do it in your off time on your phone, get extra stuff. I don't think I would be super happy with that. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't be good for some people. I personally would not like it at all, and I would be pretty upset that that's what the time was taken to develop. But I'm also somebody that would be willing to wait and see how it all goes. I'm not going to completely write it off. But the way that I feel off the drop is not good about that at all. I would not be super happy about it. I always thought the Vital Stone was a key component in SB lore. I mean, a stone that keeps you alive sounds extremely powerful. I wrote a couple of lore stories about that. Yeah, Tron. So as far as my understanding is, the Vital Stone that we had in-game, which is called Rebirth now, right? The reason they changed the way the Vital Stone the reason they changed the naming of that talent was that's not the way Vital Stone works in the lore, right? Rebirth just brings you back to life after you die. But in the lore, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Vital Stone is like a backup of your soul or your life essence. And you don't carry it around with you in your pocket. You leave it in a safe place so that if you ever die out in the field, you will be resurrected back home in a safe place where your Vital Stone was kept. Is that how it works? Is the correct understanding? Exactly right, Timmy. Listening, but maybe gauntlets are just a source of power, your source of ammo. So each gauntlet can make ammo for a power of... Yes! I like that a lot. That could be really cool. I can see that there's a lot of desire in the community to have different weapon types. And like I said, I think they definitely have to be represented in either spell form or... I guess you could have an actual axe or something and just imbue it with whatever elemental power you want. But I feel like that might be a little bit lazy and a little bit done, you know? Toxic fireballs flying at you would be scary, not like DF. I agree. And that's another thing we were talking about, Korshia. In PvE, and this is something that I'm not just talking off the top of my head. When I first tried Spellbreak and I was allowed to get in and try it early, and I was playing with all the developers of the game, I had a good conversation with the person that is in charge of what goes into Spellbreak's shop. And we talked about things we would want to see. And one of the things that he said himself, unprompted, was spell skins. It would be really cool to be able to change the cosmetic of your spells and make them change. It'd look cooler. But the problem that was presented by him and that we all kind of agreed upon was it's difficult in a PvP game when there's abilities that people rely on being able to recognize and telegraph movement whenever they look different for some players than others. it kind of caused a little bit of an issue. And I said, you know, once Spellbreak, if Spellbreak blows up, then it would be something that, you know, most people would know what's going on anyway, so it wouldn't be, they would be educated on that point, so it wouldn't be a big problem. But in PvE mode, I don't think that would be a problem. You know, it doesn't matter if the boss that you're fighting doesn't recognize the spell that you're shooting, you know? Sans One gave an interview for a Brazilian streamer, and he said that one of the possibilities for SB is change the element fire types, like change the fireballs and fire. Yes, that's what we're talking about. I totally agree. Like at the base level, change the color of your fireballs, change the color of your toxic slap. At a higher level for more money, make really cool. Like I couldn't imagine how cool it would be to throw a toxic cloud and watch it explode into like a skull that just laughs as it goes up and dissipates, or like throwing out a fireball and seeing like a dragon tail behind it. Gosh, man. And they could do that with runes and everything, man. Imagine the wolf blood transforms you into a wolf, dude. Like it could be that way in PvE because it wouldn't matter. All right, here we go. Long term. Long term is where things that are very large or in a very early stages of development live. These things are likely 3 months or more out, but have been deemed a priority, and discussions are happening internally. There's not going to be a lot here in terms of specifics to share, but we wanted to let you know that this is stuff we're actively discussing, designing, and nailing down. For all of these, they are far enough out that there's plenty of time for feedback and discussion with y'all, and that's what we hope to do over the coming months. More gauntlets, classes, elements, and runes. Yep, we've got a lot of exploration we've been doing here into art styles for elements, concepts, and prototypes for gauntlets and runes, and more. We've even opened up a few jobs specifically to work on these in the past few weeks, okay? New gauntlet, which means new class, which also means new element, okay? All right, we all knew that, and I don't think we should forget about that. Ranked competitive modes. Spellbreak's combat, skill expression, and team dynamics make this an incredibly exciting place to explore. We've heard a lot of feedback here and have a number of ideas that we're kicking around. But what are you looking for? Small-scale team versus team arena-style skirmishes? Yes. Ranked league-style play? Yes. Large-scale esports matches? Yes. Private lobbies? Yes, but not what you gave us. Something else? Yes. Okay, all right. Next, limited time modes. At the other end of the spectrum, we want to introduce a variety of limited time modes that utilize the crazier mechanics in Spellbreak, Frozen Alacrity or flight races, Featherfall plus Frost Gauntlet only matches, loot pinatas, low stress modes that highlight mechanics in new and hilarious ways, or if I'm being honest, as a test ground for the more permanent introduction of more experimental features. That would be perfect for them to do in PvE. Perfect. You could have little quests that let you do all these kinds of things. Alacrity racing could be a perfect side quest. Perfect. All of these things. Loot pinatas. Yes. I mean, all of these ideas feel like they would fit perfectly in a PvE mode. And it would be fun. Guilds. Finally, we want to introduce ways for you to play together with your friends that last longer than a single match or session. We want to reinforce social bonds amongst players, give you shared goals that you can work together towards, and proudly show off your group's accomplishment. Give me a guild hall. Put it in PvE. Give me a guild hall. Give us guild raids where we have to fight giant elemental golems that have been summoned from the fracture, and we have to use specific elements to defeat specific parts, and let my guild display what we've achieved in a meaningful way. I love that idea. I feel like it works really well in PvE. It can also work in PvP, but I feel like it is a little bit more forced. And I think that's something that we need to talk about. Is this ode? This is the Spellbreak roadmap, God of TJ. It's been around forever. Yeah, it's been around forever, since before release. But that's something that we need to talk about here, is most of these ideas that we have from Proletariat feel very, very PvE, RPG type of ideas. And I think that's one of their strengths, is they're taking a lot of those elements from those and applying it to a PvE game and making it unique. But I think they can still do that while bringing in a PVE mode and applying those ideas to both. You know what I mean? But I definitely feel like a lot of these ideas feel like PVE-centric, you know, ideas. Yes, that is the official site. Yep. My liege. Yes, dude. I want everybody to have, like, a Temptation Nation tabard. I'm going to get everybody some chainmail. Okay? This is what you get for being a sub. Custom chainmail. Tabards. Alright? Excalibur. Okay? This is what you get in the Temptation Nation.